Hello, and welcome back to Breck to the Future, a podcast where we spotlight builders, breakthroughs, and bold ideas shaping our civilization's next chapter. We're looking to ask this big question essentially, like, how do we build a better world? And in this is Breck to the Future. We're bringing curiosity, optimism, but also a builder's mindset to these big questions that are shaping your lives. I'm your host, Travis Nyer, and excited to dig in today with you. So I want you to picture this. It's 8 a.m. New York City. You grab a coffee, you walk on to this sleek new high-speed train, and 90 minutes later, you are stepping onto a platform in Washington, D.C. There's no TSA line. We know how much fun that can be. There's no cramped regional flight that you have to get onto. You're not crawling down I-95. Um, this type of a scenario, that's everyday life in places like Japan and France. But in America, good old US of A, that exact trip on Amtrak's fastest train via Acela takes over 3 hours. And that's on a good day. Uh, our average speeds for that train, those are stuck in the 20th century. And as of August 2025, we are still here. And that's after decades of plans and billions of dollars spent and a few false starts. Federal funding for major projects like California's high-speed rail and the Baltimore, D.C. Opportunity, those have been slashed. And the result of that, the cost, well, that's billions in lost productivity. We continue to see emissions from cars skyrocketing, more short haul flights, and most importantly, there's lost time. This is time that could have been spent with family. We could be pursuing other work or just simply living and not stuck in traffic or on, inefficient means of transportation for something like this. The high-speed rail is should be a next chapter in American innovation, should be a next chapter in how we see transportation in this country. Um, it's not just about moving faster within the country, it's about connecting the country, both physically, metaphorically, everything, right? It's an opportunity to unlock economic potential, and it does have there's a case that it's going to reimagine how we live and work. But why hasn't it happened? And more importantly, again, like with all of these, how do we fix it? So first, let's talk about it. Let's define it. Um, the high-speed rail, or HSR, it means a train that runs at least 155 miles an hour on a dedicated track. Globally, this is normal. Japan's Shinkansen launched in 1964. Trains arrive to the minute and they move millions of people every day. France's TGV has crushed domestic flights on key routes and has cut emissions within the country by up to 90%. China, by 2025, get this, there will be over 45,000 kilometers of high-speed track. That's connecting 96% of the major cities within China. Some trains are running at 217 miles per hour daily, and there are more that they are building that are on the way. Meanwhile, in the United States, our country, the Acela, it's occasionally hitting 150 miles per hour, but it averages 68. Why is that? Well, because it shares old tracks with freight trains and crawls through outdated infrastructure, which actually kind of makes sense. Where I live, my fiance takes a train into the city for work. 30% of the time she is late because of the train. You would think this should be systematic, there shouldn't be a problem. Um, there are four different types of rail lines that run on one singular track. If one is backed up, everything is backed up. That's a common problem here. But it's not like we haven't tried, right? In 1965, there was the High-Speed Ground Transportation. It gave us some small wins, but one of the things I've been curious about and seems to be the case is highways and airlines won the funding battles for modes of transportation. In 2009, President Barack Obama had an $8 billion stimulus earmarked for HSR Hope, but Florida, Ohio, and Wisconsin turned down that money. There were opportunities, but they turned it down. These funds became scattered, no consistency. California, this is the big one. California's project, it was approved in 2008, $33 billion in 2008 for a high-speed rail. Now it sits between 89 and 128 billion dollars just for this project. Delays from 2008 have pushed the completion well into the 2030s. Just this August, 4 billion in unspent federal grants were yanked back, with the FRA calling the project unviable. Think about that for a second. It's 2025. This project was approved in 2008. What is that? Quick math. 17 years. 17 years this project has been going on and in limbo. Nothing is done. Meanwhile, China is eating our lunch in all manner of types of major infrastructure projects. They are just getting shit done. We are not. More on that later. Maybe not this episode, but later episodes. So, what are the deeper causes? Well, number one, sadly but true, regulatory gridlock. The NEPA environmental review process can stretch more than a decade, which could explain California, but still. And by the time approvals are in hand, I mean, costs have skyrocketed. There's new things, new opportunities out there. It's just a different world by the time this is done. Second, there is fragmented governance. There's no single national rail authority that's driving these projects from vision to ribbon cutting. Instead, they're leaving it to the states, to the cities, to federal agents, and local jurisdictions that each have veto power. Now, for projects like these, there's always questions and, uh, conflicting ideas of who should own this. And look, we live in the greatest country in the world. We live in a country that where democracy thrives, where people get voices. But it seems like something like this, there needs to be some type of governing body. There needs to be a standard because if everyone gets to nitpick, then how does anything get done? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just is what it is. Number three, procurement and funding messes. So the ballooning costs from California, they're not unique. It's just baked into a system where there are long delays and there are constant redesigns that are inflating budgets. I mean, you could say it's the cost of doing business, but that's 17 years of lost business and productivity. It's insane. And from previous episodes, we've seen that, like with housing, right? I mean, California housing issues, right? Um, Not alone. It's just, it is what it is out in California. So there seems to be a need for a better regulatory process out there. Another one, land acquisition fights. This makes sense, but 17 years, it feels like this should have been hashed out. There are eminent domain battles, and that is what has stalled some of the momentum for years. And last but certainly not least, I mean, lobbying pressure. This was something that I suspected, and this is what the Civic Signal paper seems to have uncovered, is the automaker and the airline lobbying efforts, they benefit from the status quo, right? Subsidies for roads and for airports, helping more vehicles, more airplane routes. rail is just, it's a competition that they don't want. And it kind of makes sense with what we've seen. But that's, I mean, I guess with these issues that are uncovered, like that is really what gets me, right? Grinds my gears, my chaps, whatever that one is. Like w America, we're not falling behind because the technology doesn't exist. We're falling behind because the system that we have in place, it's practically designed to say no to these big, bold initiatives. I mean, imagine if something like SpaceX had to get approval from every country it flew over. I mean, we'd still be waiting for that first launch. Like it almost seems that with these big new initiatives, they just need to, you know, beg for forgiveness later, right? I mean, go start building, go do something. I hate to say it because we've become such a litigious country, but like ask for forgiveness later, go through litigation, hire the right lawyers and, fight any of the battles. Like, look, I get it. There's things that we probably should challenge, but there's a quote from high school that has always stuck with me, and that's the needs of the many will outweigh the needs of the few. And this is just something that seems like it should be like the fact that we're here in 2025 and we don't have a palatable high-speed rail, whereas other countries that I named earlier do, that's more than a little, that's insane. That is unbelievable. But it's not all bad news. There are real builders that are making progress, and those are some that we want to talk about here and highlight. So the first one that we want to talk about is Brightline, which is in Florida. It is America's only private passenger rail operator at the moment. It's currently running Miami to Orlando at 100 up to 125 miles an hour. It's not a true high-speed rail, but it's clean, it's modern, and it's profitable. It's a good start. Um, Another one, Brightline West, which is under construction now. It is planned to link Los Angeles to Las Vegas by 2028. The top speed is 200 miles an hour. That's great. It's backed by 3 billion in federal bonds and private equity, and uses highway medians to avoid some of the permitting nightmares, which is actually a really good idea. Another one that we want to talk about is Texas Central. It is pushing a Japanese style, Japanese base type of high-speed line between Dallas and Houston. It has just revived its partnership with Amtrak. It is fighting over land rights, but it's making great headway, and it is very encouraging what we're seeing. Um, Remember Acela that I talked about earlier from Amtrak? Well, they have a next gen Acela that they're looking to launch in 2027. It is looking to bring a faster service to the Northeast corridor with a new train set capable of 160 miles per hour. And then last but certainly not least, as we've explained earlier, the California high-speed rail. I mean, despite all of the drama, it has 65 miles of guideway actively under construction in the Central Valley. It does have over 50 structures completed. But then there's the policy side. There are proposals to cap NEPA reviews at 2 years, which is a huge win. I mean, 2 years is still a long time, but from what it used to be, that is a huge win. There is an effort to align the US safety standards with Europe and Japan, which would allow for lighter, faster trains. Again, I think that's a great idea because, like, why would we want to reinvent the wheel? If someone else is successfully doing it, we should learn what works, what doesn't work, and improve what we can in our iteration of it. So the fact that we're looking to align our safety standards to what Europe and Japan are doing, I think is a fantastic idea. And there are new funding frameworks that are blending public grants with private investment, which Great. Let's more dollars, the better. And that again is inspired by the France, Japan, and Brightline's hybrid models. So very encouraging stuff. And this is where we get hopeful, right? Because you can start to see a blueprint forming. Brightline is showing us what private money can do. Texas Central is showing the value of proven foreign tech and making it better or to our standards. And we're also showing how policy tweaks can make all of it faster. It's not like we're seeing it's not a lack of ideas. It's about making that system and this whole approach much friendlier to the builders. So despite all that, we do want to talk about why it's hard, right? And there's some cultural as well as political tension that we want to cover here. So, those obstacles, again, not just technical. Uh, Issues with culture, issues with various political ideologies, not like right and left, but you'll see what I mean in a second. So I think one thing that we can talk about is the car culture, right? It runs deep here in the United States. Americans, we see cars as freedom. I mean, a song that has been revived from the original, which was fantastic. I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't know of the original before it was redone. Fast Car by Tracy Chapman, later Luke Combs. I mean, that the whole thing behind that song is your the way of life at the time, but people, you save up money, you get your car, and then you go find somewhere else you're going to live or start your life, right? Cars are seen as freedom, and they still are. Um, that's just America at its core. Rail here is often viewed as restrictive or for other countries, which I think is a bit absurd. But this is a narrative that we need to work on changing, right? Rail needs to be another kind of freedom. That's how we need to reframe that. It's freedom from traffic, from parking costs, from wasted time. Like, yes, having a car gives you this freedom that you don't often see, but rail gives you another type of freedom. And that's just a reframing that I think we as a society need to start to look at. And then we want to talk about the partisan politics, right? Those are brutal on big projects. The FRA's $4 billion clawback in August was celebrated in some circles as a fiscal responsibility, but slammed in others as sabotage. Frankly, my perspective is the less government, the better, the less subsidies, the better. Like, I am fully on board with allowing the free markets to go out, figure it out, explore, iterate, and let the market determine what the best solutions are. Um, I think if anything, that the California project, I think if anything, showcases that's like 1B of the inefficiencies of government. 1A is the DMV, and those that know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. But again, the politics here, that clawback can be seen as, a fiscal move that some championed and some jeered. And then the sticker shock. I mean, that cost alone, it seems to be another killer, right? $100 billion sounds huge, and it is huge. I mean, we're celebrating all these tariffs that have come out that are bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars, and that's a big deal. Well, yeah, if you're going to deploy $100 billion high-speed rail, that's a that's a huge chunk of change. But then if you compare it to the rough estimates are 180 to 150 billion dollars that it would take to add the equivalent in highway and airport capacity, a high-speed rail looks like a bargain at that point. So, several challenges. Um, but when you look at all of those things, those issues, I mean, the real question shouldn't be, can we afford a high-speed rail? It's really like, can we afford to be stuck in our times and afford to do nothing? And as a lot of us know, the clock is ticking on our infrastructure, and the longer we wait, the higher that repair bill is going to be. So a lot of decisions that need to be made. Now, we do want to look to the future. And I want to paint a scenario on what could happen if we're able to reframe this. So, let's fast forward to 2040, 15 years from now. Fresno to San Francisco is under an hour. Dallas to Houston is 90 minutes tops. The Bright Line West turns Vegas into LA into an LA weekend commute, no big deal. We start to see entire regions functioning as unified economies. We start to see housing costs flatten because people can live farther away from those urban cores without sacrificing time. I mean, this is something that I always thought was perfect for a high-speed rail is, and this is just kind of my take, certainly open to suggestions or challenges, but I see the high-speed rail as an opportunity. Like I think we need to build new cities. And from a first principle standpoint, I think we need an incredible amount of housing. Like they say 2 to 3 million houses we talked about on a future or a previous episode. I think it's more than that personally. But in my mind, the opportunity is high-speed rail allows you to build outside of the standard general uh, urban centers or urban cores because you can then, you find that 10,000 acreage of land that can be repurposed and you build high-speed rail into these urban centers, these cores. Suddenly, yeah, it's a 30-minute, train ride to go 300 miles or whatever it ends up being. Actually, I think that is the math. Good for me. Um, and suddenly it's more palatable to live further away here and you're not sacrificing anything. And because of that, congestion would drop, emissions would drop. If high-speed rails become as normal as highways have been, we could see major transformation, and that would be incredible. It's not a fantasy, it's not a pipe dream. It seems to be a choice. And it's not just about trades, it's about us looking at this as a system that would actually work and one that we want to build. So here's my challenge to you. I want you to think about your own region. I want you to think about what is one step, whether it's a local policy tweak, a funding shift, public, private partnership, like what could move in your area to build something that's closer, connected, and more fast and efficient. Because the truth is, America's high-speed rail problem, it's not the technology, it's the governance. And governance will change when the people demand it. So this is something I think we should include in uh, things we need to demand. We need to look towards the future. We are very excited at some of the possible. I know it's a little out of the ordinary what we've started to talk about on this channel, but in my mind, a high-speed rail is something that we really need to start to look for as a country. So you have been listening to Breck to the Future, another civic signal about the high-speed rail. The builders, they're out there, they are pushing us forward, and this show is about amplifying that signal. So if today's episode sparked something in you, please share your thoughts on X at Breck to the Future. That's with no E at the end. I do read every reply. We will be back next week with more signals and spotlights. And until then, keep building, stay bold, and embrace what is ahead. Thank you.